I never thought I'd end up living in a police station. Never thought I'd be the kind of person who shoots a dog either. But here we are. Day one of my new life started about 6 hours ago. And I can still smell the gunpowder on my hands from putting that animal down. Let me back up. My name's Trevor. I'm an accountant. Was an accountant. The distinction probably doesn't matter anymore, but my brain keeps trying to hold on to these little pieces of before, like, if I remember who I was, then maybe this whole thing isn't real. Stupid, I know. The bodies in the streets are pretty fucking real. The thing that used to be Mrs. Patterson from HR trying to eat through my car window yesterday was real. The way her jaw just kept working even after her teeth broke off against the glass, that was real. I'd been driving for maybe 2 days when I got here. Sleeping in the car when I absolutely had to, driving when I could see well enough not to crash. The roads heading out of Sacramento were jammed completely. Just a parking lot of abandoned cars and dead people walking between them. Some of them were fresher than others. You could tell the new ones because they still moved with some kind of purpose. Still had that hunting instinct sharp. The older ones, the ones that had been walking for days, they shambled, dragged their feet, bumped into things. I learned pretty quick that the slow ones were almost easier to deal with than the live people. On Highway 50, some guy tried to carjack me at a rest stop. He had a tire iron and this wild look in his eyes, kept screaming about how he had kids, he needed my car, his kids were waiting. I barely got the door locked before he started swinging. Broke my side mirror clean off. I drove away and left him there, and I don't feel great about it, but I'm also still alive, so. My gun ran dry this morning. Glock 19, 15-round magazine. And I'd burned through all the ammo I had on stupid decisions. Panic shooting, mostly. There was this one intersection where maybe a dozen of them came out from behind a FedEx truck, and I just started firing, hitting maybe 3, wasting the rest of the bullets on air and asphalt. Real professional. My dad would have been ashamed. He was the one who taught me to shoot, took me to the range every couple months. Squeeze, don't pull, he'd say. And for Christ's sake, count your rounds. I didn't count my rounds. So this morning, I'm rolling through what used to be Roseville. I was trying to find anywhere that might have supplies, and the gas light comes on. Perfect, just perfect. I've got maybe 20 miles left in the tank, and every gas station I pass is either burned out or surrounded by those things. There's this weird pattern to how they cluster. They gather near places where there was noise, where people probably tried to make a stand. Strip malls, apartment complexes, anywhere with lots of doors and windows. I was thinking about just picking a house, any house, and trying to wait this out when I saw the police station. It's a newer building, maybe 10 years old. All that beige brick and dark glass they put up in suburbs that want to look serious. 2 stories. Flat roof, parking lot surrounded by a fence that's maybe 7 feet tall. Chain link, not great, but better than nothing. And the important part, the part that made me actually pull into the parking lot instead of just driving past, was that I didn't see any movement. No bodies in the lot, no shambling figures, no broken windows, just quiet. I sat in my car for maybe 20 minutes, just watching. Engine off to save gas, windows cracked to listen. My heart was doing that thing where it beats so hard you can feel it in your throat. Every time I thought about getting out, about crossing that open parking lot to the front door, my hands started shaking. But I was out of bullets, out of food, almost out of gas. And the sun was getting lower. So I went. The front door was locked, but not like seriously locked. I hit it with my shoulder twice and something in the mechanism gave way. The sound it made echoed across the parking lot, and I froze, waiting for that sound to draw them in. You learn fast that noise is death. Anything louder than a whisper, and they come shuffling out of wherever they've been standing, following the sound like moths to a flame. Nothing came. I slipped inside and pulled the door shut behind me. The lobby was dark, just emergency lighting casting everything in red. There was a reception desk, some chairs, a water fountain that was probably disgusting by now. Posters on the wall about community policing and neighborhood watch programs. All that stuff that doesn't mean anything anymore. And blood. Not a lot, but enough. Drag marks across the linoleum leading toward a hallway on the left. I checked the offices first. Most of them were empty, just desks and computers and coffee cups with mold growing inside. One of them had a body slumped over the keyboard. White guy, maybe 40, no uniform, still crisp like he'd just put it on when everything went bad. I checked his pulse out of habit, even though I could smell that he'd been dead for days. No pulse, no movement, just dead. His service weapon was still in the holster. Beretta 92 FS, full magazine, one in the chamber. I checked it 3 times to make sure it was real, that I wasn't hallucinating from stress or lack of sleep or whatever. But no, it was real. 15 rounds of 9mm and a backup magazine in his belt. I took both, took his handcuffs too, even though I wasn't sure what I'd use them for. Seemed like the kind of thing that might come in handy. The armory was locked with a proper door, steel frame, electronic keypad. I spent an hour trying to guess the code. Badge numbers from the nameplates on the desks, the address of the building, random combinations, and nothing worked. I thought about trying to shoot the lock, but that seemed like a good way to waste bullets and potentially ricochet one into my own face. So I left it, moved on. The second floor was mostly administrative offices and a break room. The break room still had food. Not much, but some. Vending machine with chips and candy bars, refrigerator that had stopped working days ago and smelled like death itself when I opened it. I gagged and slammed it shut. But the cabinets had coffee, sugar packets, a few cans of soup, some instant oatmeal packets. Not exactly a feast, but better than nothing. I was standing there taking inventory, trying to figure out how long I could stretch this stuff, when I heard scratching. Not from outside, from inside the building. It came from down the hall, from what looked like a holding cell area. Just steady scratch, 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 like something trying to get out. My first thought was that one of them was trapped in there. That some cop had locked up an infected person before they understood what was happening. My second thought was that I should leave it alone, whatever it was. But I had to know. The holding area had 4 cells, all with bars, all empty except the last one. And inside the last one was a dog. German Shepherd, still had a collar with tags. Thin, ribs showing through the fur, but alert. It looked up at me when I came around the corner and its tail started wagging, just slightly, tentatively, like it wasn't sure if I was friend or food. "Hey, buddy," I said, keeping my voice low. "You okay in there?" The dog whined, pressed its nose against the bars. I stepped closer, trying to see better in the dim emergency lighting. That's when I noticed the foam around its mouth. Not a lot, just a little bit of white froth at the corners. And its eyes looked wrong. Cloudy, unfocused. My stomach dropped. I'd seen that look before. On my neighbor, actually, back when this whole thing started. Mr. Kowalski from 3 doors down. He'd gotten bit on day 2, didn't tell anyone, tried to just tough it out in his house. By the time his wife called for help, he had that same cloudy look in his eyes, same foam at the mouth. We found out pretty quick that the infection didn't just spread between people. The dog took a step forward and stumbled. Its back leg gave out for a second and then caught. When it looked at me again, there was nothing behind those eyes. No recognition, no hope, just hunger. "Fuck," I whispered. "I'm sorry, buddy." I pulled the Beretta from my waistband. The dog's tail was still wagging slightly, that stupid instinct that dogs have to trust people even when people are about to do something terrible. I thought about just leaving it locked in there, letting it starve or turn or whatever was going to happen. But that seemed cruel. Crueler than the alternative. I aimed through the bars. The shot was loud in the enclosed space, louder than I expected. The dog dropped immediately. No suffering, just gone. My ears rang. I stood there for maybe a minute, just staring at what I'd done, feeling sick, feeling like I'd crossed some line that I couldn't uncross. Then I heard them. Outside, drawn by the gunshot, they were coming. I could hear the scraping of feet on asphalt, the low moans they make that sound almost like questions. How many, I couldn't tell. Didn't matter. I just announced my presence to every infected thing within a quarter mile. I ran back to the front lobby and looked through the glass door. There were 6 of them in the parking lot already, more shambling around the corner of the building. Some fast, some slow. A woman in a bathrobe with half her face missing. A teenager in a football jersey. A construction worker still wearing his hard hat. They pressed against the fence, testing it. Pushing. The chain link bowed inward, but held. For now. I spent the next 4 hours fortifying. Found a water cooler in one of the offices and rolled it against the front door. Dragged filing cabinets to block the side entrance. There was a back door that led to a loading area, but it was already secured with a heavy deadbolt. So I left it alone. All the windows on the first floor got covered with whatever I could find. Whiteboards, corkboards, desks turned on their sides. By the time I finished, it was dark outside, and I was drenched in sweat. My hands were shaking again, not from fear this time, but from exhaustion. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, hadn't slept properly in days. I made my way back to the break room and ate a Snickers bar and a bag of Doritos while sitting on the floor with my back against the wall. Outside, I could hear them walking around, bumping into the fence, moaning. The sound never stopped. It just continued, this low ambient noise of the dead, looking for the living. Welcome home, I thought. The first night I barely slept. I'd set up in one of the second-floor offices, dragged a desk in front of the door. It kept the Beretta on my chest with my hand wrapped around the grip. Every sound made me jerk awake. The building settling, the wind rattling something outside. Once, something heavy fell somewhere on the first floor, and I sat bolt upright, heart pounding, sure that they'd gotten in. But nothing came up the stairs. When the sun started coming through the windows, I felt like I'd been awake for a week straight. My whole body ached, my head throbbed. But I was alive, and the building was still secure. So that counted for something. I spent that first morning doing a proper inventory, going through every office, every drawer, every cabinet. Here's what I found. 3 more boxes of 9mm ammunition in a supply closet. 50 rounds each. Whoever stocked this place hadn't believed in skimping. A first aid kit that was actually well stocked. Bandages, antiseptic, painkillers, even some antibiotics. A case of bottled water in the storage room. 24 bottles. More vending machine food and break room supplies. Maybe 2 weeks' worth if I was careful. A radio that didn't work. I tried everything, changed batteries, adjusted the antenna, but got nothing but static. Keys. So many keys. I found a whole ring of them in the reception desk and started trying them indoors. Most were for offices I'd already been in, but one of them opened a maintenance closet that had tools, screwdrivers, hammers, a crowbar, duct tape, useful stuff. And in the police chief's office, locked in a desk drawer, I found a handgun. Smith & Wesson M and P Shield. Compact, 9 rounds. Not ideal, but better than nothing. I took it and the 2 spare magazines that were with it. So I had guns. And then I had some ammo. I had a little bit of food and water. What I didn't have was a plan beyond surviving the next day. From the second-floor windows, I could see a good chunk of the surrounding area. The police station sat on the edge of what used to be a shopping center. There was a target about 200 yards away, a Safeway beyond that. Both parking lots were full of abandoned cars and wandering infected. I counted maybe 30 in my line of sight, but I knew there had to be more inside the buildings. The fence around the police station was holding for now, but I could see where they'd been testing it. The posts were starting to lean in places. The chain link had stretched. It wouldn't last forever. I needed supplies. Real supplies. Food that would keep, water, medical stuff. Maybe something to reinforce the fence. But getting to any store meant crossing open ground, meant making noise, meant risking everything. Not today, I decided. Today I just needed to rest and think. I made myself eat half a can of soup and drink 1 bottle of water. Forced myself to go through the motions, even though I didn't feel hungry. I'd read somewhere that people in survival situations sometimes just forget to eat. Get so focused on the fear that they waste away without realizing it. The second night was quieter. Maybe they were spreading out, looking for easier prey. Maybe they'd already moved on. I didn't trust it either way. I was lying on the floor of the office I'd claimed, staring at the ceiling, when I heard something different. Not moaning, not shuffling. A voice, human, distant, shouting something I couldn't make out. I crawled to the window and looked out. It was dark, but the moon was bright enough to see shapes moving in the Target parking lot. People. Living people. 3 of them, running between cars, being chased by maybe a dozen infected. They were losing. One of them went down, surrounded, pulled under by grasping hands. The other 2 kept running, heading toward the Safeway. I watched until they disappeared around the corner, and I couldn't see them anymore. Part of me thought about trying to help, about firing shots to draw the infected away, giving those people a chance. But I had limited ammo and no idea who they were or if they'd even make it. And firing my gun would just bring more of those things to my doorstep. So I did nothing. I went back to my spot on the floor and tried not to think about it. Tried not to imagine what it was like for the person who went down. Tried not to feel like a coward. Day 3. That's when things started getting strange. I woke up to complete silence. No moaning outside. No shuffling. Nothing. Just dead quiet. I looked out the window and the parking lot was empty. The infected that had been testing the fence, the ones that had been circling the building, they were just gone. All of them. My first thought was relief. My second thought was suspicion. In my experience, when something seems too good to be true, it usually is. I spent an hour just watching, waiting for the catch. But nothing moved. The morning sun came up and turned everything golden and normal looking, like maybe the world wasn't ending after all. I decided to risk it. There was a gas station across the street, nice one of those mini-marts attached to a chevron. I could see it from the window. The pumps looked intact, and there might be supplies inside. If I was fast, if I was quiet, I could make it there and back in maybe 20 minutes. I geared up. Both handguns, all my spare magazines, the crowbar from the maintenance closet. I moved the water cooler away from the front door and stood there for a full minute, listening. Still nothing. I stepped outside. The air smelled like rot and gasoline and something else I couldn't identify. Chemical, maybe. Wrong. The parking lot looked normal, except for the dried blood stains and the occasional piece of torn clothing caught on the fence. I moved slowly, placing each foot carefully, trying not to make noise. The fence gate had been left open, probably by whatever cops had been here when things went bad. I slipped through and started across the street. Halfway there, I realized my mistake. The silence wasn't because they were gone, it was because they were inside. The gas station door was propped open with a brick. I could see movement in the darkness beyond, shapes shifting. I froze, trying to decide if I should run back or keep going. That's when I heard the sound. Clicking, not moaning, not shuffling. Clicking, like someone rapidly opening and closing their jaw. Click, 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 click. One of them came into view in the doorway. Female, maybe 30, wearing what used to be a business suit. But wrong. Her jaw was doing that clicking thing, opening and closing too fast, almost vibrating. And her eyes were completely black, not cloudy like the others. Black, like someone had filled them with ink. She looked right at me and stopped clicking. Then she screamed. Not a moan, not a groan, a scream. High-pitched and furious and so loud, I felt it in my chest. And behind her, inside the gas station, other voices took up the call. Screaming, clicking, a whole chorus of them. I ran, didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just turned and ran back toward the police station as fast as my legs could carry me. Behind me, I could hear them coming out of the gas station, their feet slapping on pavement, moving faster than any infected I'd seen before. I hit the fence gate at full speed, slammed it shut behind me, kept running for the front door, got inside and shoved the water cooler back into place and stood there gasping, trying not to hyperventilate. Through the glass, I watched them hit the fence. There were maybe 8 of them, and all doing that clicking thing with their jaws, all with those black eyes. They didn't press against the chain link like the others had. They climbed it. They fucking climbed it. Their fingers found purchase in the links and they hauled themselves up. Fast and coordinated, not shambling or stupid, but purposeful. One of them made it to the top and started to pull itself over when I raised the Beretta and fired. Hit it in the chest. It fell back, but 2 more were already climbing. I fired again, missed. Fired again, hit one in the shoulder. It didn't slow down. I emptied the magazine into them, dropped it, slammed in a fresh one. The ones I'd hit were down, but more were coming out of the gas station, drawn by the noise. Not just the black-eyed ones. Regular infected too, shambling out of buildings and cars and God knows where else. I stopped shooting, backed away from the door, watched as they surrounded the building again, pressing in, climbing, testing every possible entry point. And I realized I wasn't just trapped in here anymore. I was under siege. The clicking ones were different. I spent the rest of that day watching them from the 2nd floor windows, trying to understand what I was seeing. They moved in groups, coordinated. When one would climb the fence and I'd show myself at a window, the others would spread out, like they were trying to flank. When I fired at them, they'd retreat, but not in panic. Tactically, using the parked cars as cover. It was like they could think. The regular infected just milled around, bumping into things, following sounds. But these others, these black-eyed clicking ones, they seemed to be organizing, testing the fence, looking for weaknesses. I counted 12 of them by nightfall, 12 that I could see. Maybe more inside the nearby buildings. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my office with both guns loaded and listened to them outside. The clicking had stopped, but I could hear other sounds. Dragging, scraping, like they were moving things around out there. When the sun came up, I saw what they'd done. They'd pushed a car against the fence. An old Honda Civic just rolled it across the parking lot and wedged it against the chain link. The fence was bowing inward badly now, the posts bent at angles they weren't meant to bend. And they were stacking things. Debris from the parking lot, trash cans, pieces of broken concrete. Making a ramp up to the car, up to the fence. They were building. I shot at them from the window, but they were too far away, and I was too shaky to hit anything. Wasted 3 bullets, and they just scattered. Waited for me to stop, then went right back to work. By afternoon, the ramp was nearly complete, and more of them were showing up. I saw a group come shambling down the street, maybe 20 infected, and the black-eyed ones went out to meet them. They didn't attack each other. The black-eyed ones moved through them like shepherds, guiding them, pushing them toward the police station, gathering an army. I was standing at the window watching this, trying to figure out what the hell I was going to do, when I heard something behind me. Inside the building. Footsteps on the first floor. I spun around, both guns up, heart in my throat. Called out, "Hello?" No answer. Just more footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from the holding cell area. I moved to the stairwell and looked down. Nothing. Just shadows and that red emergency lighting. But I could still hear it. Step, step, step. "Who's there?" I tried again, my voice cracking. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice, low and raspy, like someone who'd been screaming for hours. "Please." Just that. Please. I should have stayed upstairs. Should have barricaded myself in and waited it out. But something about that voice, the desperation in it, the pure human fear, it made me move before I could think better of it. I went down the stairs slowly, Beretta leading the way. Clicked on the flashlight I'd found and swept it across the first floor. Empty offices, empty hallway. The drag marks from that first day, still visible in the dust. "Where are you?" I called. "Holding cells?" "Please, I'm locked in." I moved down the hallway, every nerve in my body screaming that this was a trap. The holding cell area was just ahead, the same place where I'd found the dog, where I'd shot the dog. The smell hit me before I saw anything. Decay, human waste, infection. There was someone in the last cell. Male, mid-20s maybe, pressed against the bars. His skin was gray, his lips were cracked and bleeding, and his eyes were cloudy, not black. Cloudy, like he was turning. "Help me," he croaked. "Please, I've been here for days, since before, since it started." I kept my distance, kept the gun pointed at him. "You're infected?" I said. No, I'm just sick, I'm just hungry. Please, I haven't eaten, I haven't had water. Just let me out." His hands gripped the bars, and I could see the skin of his palms was split, like he'd been trying to force his way through. Dark fluid leaked from the cracks. "How did you get locked in there?" I asked. "I don't remember. I was drunk, I think. I was in the drunk tank and then everyone left and I've been here ever since. Please, you have to let me out." His voice was getting louder, more agitated. Outside, I could hear the infected responding to the noise, their moaning picking up in volume. "Keep your voice down," I hissed. "Let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out." He was screaming now, shaking the bars, and I saw foam starting to form at the corners of his mouth. I raised the gun. "I'm sorry," I said. He lunged at the bars, reaching through them for me, fingers grasping. His jaw started to do that clicking thing, not as fast as the ones outside, but definitely clicking. I backed away. He left him there screaming and rattling the bars. went back upstairs and shoved a filing cabinet in front of the stairwell door. He screamed for 3 hours before his voice gave out. Then it was just clicking and the sound of him throwing himself against the bars over and over. I sat in my office with my hands over my ears and tried not to lose my mind. Day 5. The fence came down. I was rationing my food carefully now. 1 meal a day, just enough to keep going. The water was more concerning. I'd gone through half the bottles, and I wasn't sure how long the rest would last. There was a water fountain on the first floor, but I'd have to get past the clicking thing in the holding cell to reach it. The black-eyed ones hit the fence at dawn, used the ramp they'd built to climb up and over, dropped down into the parking lot. I fired at them from the window, hit 2, but there were too many. They spread out around the building, testing doors, climbing up to check windows. One of them found a window I'd missed on the first floor. Bathroom window, small but not small enough. I heard the glass break and then that high-pitched scream, and I knew I was out of time. I grabbed everything I could carry: guns, ammo, the crowbar, a bag of vending machine snacks. Ran to the stairwell and almost opened the door before I remembered the thing in the holding cells. Changed direction. There was another stairwell on the opposite side of the building, one that led to the roof. I checked it out on day 2 but dismissed it as useless. No way down except a 20-foot drop to the parking lot. But now the parking lot was full of those things, and they were inside the building, and so up was my only option. I hit the roof access door at full speed, burst out into daylight. The roof was flat, covered in that white gravel stuff they put on commercial buildings, studded with air conditioning units and vent pipes. I could see the whole area from up here. The shopping center, the residential streets beyond, all of it crawling with infected. And I could see what was coming. More of them. Hundreds. Streaming in from every direction, drawn by the noise and the smell and whatever sick instinct drives them. Not just the regular shambling ones. Black-eyed ones too. Clicking and screaming and coordinating. Below me I heard them in the building. Furniture crashing, glass breaking. That clicking sound echoing through the halls. I was trapped on a roof with nowhere to go and maybe 40 rounds of ammunition left. This was it. This was where it ended. I sat down with my back against an air conditioning unit and laughed. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of the whole thing just hit me all at once. All the preparation, all the fortifying, all the careful survival instinct. And I was going to die on a roof in Roseville because I'd shot a fucking dog and made too much noise. The laughter turned into something else. Not crying exactly, but close. I put my head in my hands and just sat there for a while, listening to them destroy my shelter below. Then I heard the helicopter. At first I thought I was hallucinating, sleep deprivation and stress creating sounds that weren't there. But no, it was real. The thump, thump, thump of rotors cutting through the morning air. I jumped up and looked around wildly. There, to the east, maybe 2 miles out, a black helicopter, military-looking, flying low over the residential areas. I started waving my arms, screaming. "Here, I'm here, help!" It kept going. Didn't change course, didn't acknowledge me at all. I grabbed the Beretta and fired 3 shots into the air. The universal distress signal. 3 shots, pause, 3 more. The helicopter kept flying, disappeared behind some buildings. I stood there with the gun hanging loose in my hand, watching the empty sky where it had been. Then I heard engines. Not the helicopter. Cars, trucks, coming from the direction the helicopter had been flying. I ran to the edge of the roof and looked down at the street. A convoy was coming through. 2 pickup trucks, a van, some kind of military vehicle in the lead. They were plowing through the infected, not even slowing down, just crushing anything in their path. They drove right past the police station. I screamed again, waved my arms, fired more shots. One of the people in the back of a pickup looked up at me, made eye contact, then looked away and said something to the driver. They kept going, left me there. I watched them disappear down the street, and I felt something break inside me. That last little piece of hope that maybe someone would help, maybe I wasn't completely alone in this, it just shattered. Below me, the infected were figuring out how to get to the roof. I could hear them on the stairs, could hear that door rattling as they pushed against it. The lock would hold for a while, but not forever. I checked my ammunition. 28 rounds left between both guns, maybe 100 infected within sight. Basic math told me how this was going to end. I thought about my parents. They'd retired to Florida 2 years ago, bought a condo in Boca Raton. We'd had a fight before they left, something stupid about me never visiting, about me being too focused on work. I'd planned to fly out for Thanksgiving and patch things up. Wondered if they were still alive. Wondered if they'd thought about me when everything started falling apart. Wondered if it mattered. The roof access door shuddered. They were throwing themselves against it now, that clicking mixing with moaning and screaming. Wood started to splinter around the frame. I walked to the edge of the roof and looked down at the parking lot. 20 feet. If I aimed for the grass strip along the fence, I might not break both legs. Might be able to run. Get to one of those cars in the lot, hotwire it, drive away. Or I'd shatter my ankles and they'd eat me alive while I lay there helpless. The door broke. They poured out onto the roof in a wave of grasping hands and clicking jaws and black eyes. I didn't think, just acted. Raised both guns and started firing. Dropped the first 3. Reloaded. Dropped 2 more. They kept coming. Too many. Way too many. I backed up to the edge of the roof, still firing. Hit one in the face, watched half its skull come off, and it just kept coming. Hit another in the chest, center mass, and it stumbled but didn't go down. The guns clicked empty. I was out. The closest one was maybe 6 feet away, this thing that used to be a teenager in a pizza delivery uniform. Half its face was rotted off, but the remaining eye was pure black and locked onto me with terrible intelligence. It had opened its mouth to scream, and I swung the crowbar I'd forgotten I was holding. Connected with its jaw, felt bone crack. It went down, but 3 more were right behind it. I swung again, and again, and again. My arms burned. My hands went numb. The crowbar got slippery with blood and dark fluid, and I almost lost my grip. They surrounded me, pressing in from all sides, backing me up against the roof's edge. I felt my heels step into nothing and looked back. The edge was right there. One more step and I'd go over. The infected pressed forward. I made a choice, turned and jumped. 20 feet has never felt so long. I had time to see the ground rushing up, time to think this is going to hurt, time to regret everything. Then I hit, not the grass, not the pavement. I hit the top of the van from the convoy. They'd come back, and I'd landed flat on my back on the roof of the van, and every bit of air in my lungs exploded out. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Above me, infected were raining down off the police station roof, landing on the pavement, on cars, breaking themselves apart in their mindless pursuit. The van was moving, driving in reverse, and someone was leaning out the passenger window shooting at the infected. Pop, 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 controlled bursts, nothing wasted. "Grab him," a voice yelled. Hands grabbed my arms, pulled me toward the back of the van. I slid across the metal roof, still wheezing, still unable to make my lungs work properly. Someone caught me as I started to slide off, pulled me through the open rear doors. The doors slammed shut. I lay on the floor of the van, gasping like a fish, staring up at 3 faces looking down at me. 2 men, 1 woman, armed. wearing mismatched tactical gear like they'd raided a sporting goods store. "You bit?" the woman asked. She had short red hair and a shotgun pointed at my chest. I shook my head, still couldn't speak. "Check him," she said to one of the men. Rough hands patted me down, checked my arms, my neck, anywhere an infected might have gotten teeth in. I finally got my lungs working again, sucked in air that tasted like gun smoke and sweat. "Clean," the guy said. He was older, maybe 50, with gray in his beard. The woman lowered the shotgun slightly. "You're lucky. We weren't going to come back. Derek convinced us." She jerked her thumb at the third person, a younger guy, maybe early 20s. He was the one who'd made eye contact with me from the pickup truck. "Couldn't just leave him," Derek said quietly. "Already left too many." The van hit something, lurched hard to the left. I heard gunfire from outside, heard the driver cursing. "Where are we going?" I managed to ask. "Somewhere safer than here," the woman said. "Maybe, hopefully. We've got a place set up outside the city. Walls, supplies, real fortifications. You know how to shoot?" "Yeah." "Good. We need people who can pull their weight." She offered me her hand and pulled me into a sitting position. "I'm Rachel. That's Phil, and you've met Derek." "Trevor," I said. "Well, Trevor, welcome to what's left of humanity. Try not to get eaten." The van drove for maybe 30 minutes, weaving through streets, avoiding clusters of infected. Through the rear windows, I could see the other vehicles from the convoy, staying close, covering each other. Professional, organized, like they'd been doing this for a while. We left the city behind, went north into the hills where there were fewer buildings and fewer infected. The landscape opened up into brown grass and scattered trees and the occasional farmhouse. Eventually, we turned off onto a dirt road, and I saw it. The place they'd set up. It used to be some kind of retreat center. Big main building, smaller cabins scattered around, all of it surrounded by a fence that someone had reinforced with sheets of corrugated metal and barbed wire. Guard towers at the corners with people in them holding rifles. The gates opened, and we drove through. I'd been alone for 5 days. Felt like 5 years. Seeing this place, seeing living people moving around with purpose, hearing normal conversation and even some laughter from somewhere, and it made something in my chest loosen. We weren't done, nowhere close. But at least I wasn't alone anymore. Rachel helped me out of the van, and I stood there looking around. Maybe 40 people that I could see. More inside, probably. Kids, even. Actual kids running around playing some game near one of the cabins. "We've got rules," Rachel was saying. "Everyone works. Everyone contributes. You'll get a bunk assignment, a job detail, and a schedule. Food is rationed, but fair. Water, too. We've got a well that still works. You fuck up, you steal, you endanger the group, you're out. Understand?" I nodded. "Good. Phil will get you settled. Get some food in you, some sleep. You look like hell." "Thanks," I said, "for coming back, for not leaving me." She shrugged. "Thank Derek. Oh, he's the one with the conscience." She walked away, and Phil led me toward the main building. We passed people working on reinforcing the fence, people sorting supplies, people just sitting and talking quietly. Normal stuff. Human stuff. "This place got a name?" I asked Phil. He laughed, but it was bitter. "We call it the last stop. Bit melodramatic, I know. But that's kind of what it feels like. Last bit of civilization before everything goes completely dark." We went inside. The building had been a dining hall once. Long tables, industrial kitchen, walls covered with maps and schedules and notes. Someone had set up a medical station in one corner. Someone else had organized a supply depot along the back wall. Phil got me a plate of food. rice and beans, and some kind of meat I didn't ask about. First real meal I'd had in almost a week. I ate slowly, trying not to make myself sick. "How long have you all been here?" I asked between bites. 3 weeks. Started with maybe 10 of us. Been picking up survivors along the way. Rachel and her wife Emily run things. They're both ex-military, know what they're doing. We've lost some people, had to kick out a few others, but we're managing. And you just drive around rescuing people? Not exactly. We do scavenging runs, hitting stores and houses for supplies. When we see survivors, we help if we can. But our priority is the group, keeping this place running. He paused. "You saw those things at the police station? The ones with the black eyes?" "Yeah. We've been seeing more of them. They're spreading, or evolving, or whatever the fuck they're doing. The regular infected are bad enough, but these new ones, they're organized. They hunt in packs. They problem solve. It's like they're developing intelligence." I thought about them building that ramp, coordinating, using the regular infected as tools. "How do you fight something like that?" I asked. Phil didn't answer right away, just looked at me with tired eyes. "We don't," he finally said. "We hide, we fortify. We hope they move on. And we know that eventually, probably soon, this place won't be safe anymore either. Nothing is. It's all just borrowed time." He wasn't wrong. I'd seen the hordes moving through the city, seen how many there were. Even with walls and guns and organization. What chance did 40 people have against hundreds? Thousands. But I was too tired to think about it. Too tired to worry about tomorrow when today had almost killed me. Phil showed me to a bunk in one of the cabins. Narrow cot, thin mattress, pillow that smelled like mildew. Most beautiful bed I'd ever seen. I lay down still wearing my boots and bloody clothes and fell asleep before I could think about anything else. Dreamed about the dog, about pulling that trigger, about the way its tail had still been wagging. Woke up 8 hours later to someone shaking my shoulder. It was Derek. "Sorry to wake you," he said. "But Rachel wants everyone at a meeting. Something's happened." I dragged myself up and followed him to the main building. Everyone was gathering, filling in around the tables, looking worried. Rachel stood at the front next to a woman I hadn't met yet. Tall, black, close-cropped hair. Had to be Emily. Rachel waited for everyone to quiet down. "We had scouts out today checking the perimeter," she said. "They saw something. Emily, show them." Emily clicked on a laptop and projected an image onto the wall. Security camera footage, grainy and black and white, from somewhere outside the compound. It showed the road leading to the retreat center. And it showed them, the black-eyed ones, dozens of them, moving up the road in a coordinated line. Behind them, hundreds of regular infected. An army. And they were heading straight for us. "They'll be here by tomorrow morning," Emily said quietly. "Maybe sooner." The room erupted in noise. People shouting questions, arguing, panicking. Rachel fired her shotgun into the ceiling, and everyone shut up. "We have options," she said. "We can run, pack up what we can carry, and abandon this place. Or we can stay and fight." "Fight!" someone yelled. "There's hundreds of them." "We've got defensive positions. We've got ammunition. We've got people who know how to use it." Rachel's voice was hard. "But I won't lie to you. If we stay, some of us are going to die. Maybe all of us. And if we run?" That was Phil. "Then we're on the road with limited supplies and no shelter. We might find another place. Or we might all die anyway. Just slower." Silence. Everyone looking at each other, trying to read faces, trying to figure out what the right answer was. There wasn't one. That was the thing. There was no right answer anymore. Just bad options and worse options, and hope that you picked the one that let you see another sunrise. I thought about the police station, about how I'd fortified it, how I'd thought I was safe, thus about how quickly it had all fallen apart. But I also thought about that moment when the van came back for me, when Derek had convinced them to risk their lives for someone they didn't know. Maybe that was worth fighting for. Maybe that was all we had left. I stood up. "I'll stay," I said. "I'll fight." Derek stood up next to me. "Me too." Then Phil, then others. One by one until maybe half the room was standing. Rachel looked at Emily. Some silent communication passed between them. "All right," Rachel said. "We fight. Everyone not fighting leaves at dawn. Takes 2 of the vehicles and whatever supplies they can carry. Head east into the mountains. Try to find somewhere defensible. The rest of us start preparing now. We've got maybe 12 hours to turn this place into a kill box." People started moving immediately. The ones who were leaving went to pack. The ones staying started organizing. Someone broke out the weapons cache. Someone else started reinforcing the gates with additional vehicles and scrap metal. I found myself on a crew filling sandbags and building firing positions along the inner wall. Manual labor, mindless, gave me time to think. This was insane. We were all going to die. But I kept filling sandbags anyway. Derek worked next to me, quiet and focused. Eventually I asked him, "Why'd you come back for me?" He didn't look up from his work. "My sister. At the start of all this, when people were evacuating Sacramento, she got separated from us. We were in a crowd trying to get onto a bus, and someone pushed her. She went down, and we just kept moving. The crowd carried us away. I looked back and saw her trying to get up, calling for us, and I kept going. Told myself we'd find her later, that she'd be okay." He dumped sand into a bag and started filling another. "Never saw her again," he said. "Every day I think about that moment, about choosing to keep moving instead of going back. So when I saw you on that roof, I don't know, felt like maybe I could make up for it somehow." "You can't save everyone," I said. "No, but I can try to save someone." We worked in silence after that. By midnight, the place looked different. The retreat center had transformed into a fortress. Overlapping fields of fire, backup positions, fallback routes. Rachel and Emily had done this before, you could tell. They understood tactics, understood how to use limited resources to maximum effect. The ones who were leaving gathered their stuff and said their goodbyes. All parents hugging kids who were staying to fight. Partners kissing like it might be the last time. One woman, probably in her 70s, refused to leave. "I'm too old to run," she said. "Rather die here with some dignity." Nobody argued with her. The vehicles rolled out around 2 a.m., lights off, moving slow and quiet. Watching them go felt final, like we were cutting the last rope tying us to the idea of running away. Rachel organized us into shifts. 4 hours on, 4 hours off. I drew first shift with Derek and Phil, assigned to the east wall where the road came in. We sat in our sandbagged position with rifles across our laps and waited. The night was cold and clear. Stars everywhere, the kind of sky you never saw in the city. Peaceful. Wrong. Almost like the universe didn't care that down here people were about to kill each other over the scraps of civilization. "You think they'll actually come?" Derek asked. "Yeah," I said. "They'll come." And they did. We heard them first, that clicking sound carrying through the still air, then moaning, then footsteps, hundreds of footsteps. They came up the road in formation, the black-eyed ones in front, moving with purpose, the regular infected shambling behind them. In the moonlight, they looked like shadows, like something out of a nightmare. Rachel's voice came over the radio. "Hold fire. Wait for my signal." They got closer. 50 yards. 40. 30. I could see their faces now. See the intelligence in those black eyes. See the way they moved together, coordinated, like a pack of wolves. 20 yards. Fire. The night exploded. The muzzle flashes lit up the compound. The crackle of rifles, the boom of shotguns, the chatter of someone's AR-15 on full auto. The front rank of infected went down in a wave, and the ones behind them kept coming. I aimed and fired, tried to pick targets, tried to make every shot count. Hit one in the chest, watched it spin and go down. Hit another in the head, and it dropped like a puppet with cut strings. They hit the outer fence and started climbing. We cut them down, but there were too many. The fence started to sag under their weight. "Fall back to secondary positions!" Rachel screamed over the radio. We grabbed our gear and ran to the inner defensive line. Behind us, the outer fence came down in a screech of tortured metal. They poured through the gap, hundreds of them, filling the space between the outer and inner fences. We fired from behind our sandbags and vehicles, creating a kill zone. Bodies piled up, but they kept coming, climbing over their own dead to get to us. One of them made it over the inner fence, then another, then 5 more. Close quarters now. Rachel was firing her shotgun point blank into anything that got close. Emily had 2 pistols, working them like a professional, dropping infected with headshots while barely seeming to aim. I saw Phil go down, grabbed by one of the black-eyed ones. It bit into his shoulder and he screamed. Derek put it down with a rifle shot, but the damage was done. Phil was infected. He knew it too. Looked at Derek, at me, with this terrible understanding in his eyes. "Go," he said. "Get out of here." He pulled a pistol from his belt and walked toward the fence where more of them were climbing over. Started firing, buying us seconds. We ran. The compound was chaos, infected everywhere. People fighting, people running, people dying. The main building was on fire. Someone must have knocked over a lantern. Smoke filled the air. I lost track of Derek in the confusion. Found myself back to back with the old woman who'd refused to leave. She had a hunting rifle and was working the bolt action like she'd been doing it her whole life. "My husband taught me to shoot," she said calmly between shots. "Died in Korea. Always said these skills would come in handy someday." She dropped 3 more infected, then took a round from somewhere. Friendly fire probably, someone panicking in the dark. She went down hard. I grabbed her rifle and kept firing. Don't know how long the fight lasted. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Time went weird, compressed into moments of terror broken by brief seconds of calm. Eventually, the infected stopped coming. Either we'd killed enough of them or they'd pulled back to regroup. I stood there covered in blood and cordite, surrounded by bodies, and realized I was still alive. Miracle or curse, I couldn't tell. I found Derek near the main building, helping Emily drag Rachel away from the fire. Rachel was hurt bad, leg torn up, losing blood fast. "We need to move," Emily was saying. "This place is lost." She was right. The compound was destroyed, bodies everywhere, fires spreading. And in the darkness beyond the ruined fences, I could see more infected gathering. Not attacking yet, but watching, waiting. We gathered who we could find. 8 of us left out of maybe 20 who'd stayed to fight. 8 wounded, exhausted, running on fumes and adrenaline. There was 1 vehicle left that wasn't destroyed, a pickup truck with half a tank of gas. We loaded Rachel into the bed, piled in the rest, and drove through the ruined gates into the night. Behind us, the last stop burned. We drove north into the mountains with no plan and no destination. Just away. Away from the infected, away from the fire, away from everything. Rachel died about an hour later. Just closed her eyes and stopped breathing. Emily didn't cry, didn't say anything, just held her hand until we found a place to stop. We buried her in a shallow grave off the side of the road. Didn't have time or tools for anything deeper. Emily said some words I didn't hear, and then we got back in the truck and kept going. By dawn, we were deep in the national forest. Trees on all sides, narrow dirt roads, no sign of infected or people or anything. Just wilderness. Derek was driving. Emily sat next to him, staring out the window. The rest of us were in the bed, silent, dealing with our own thoughts. I kept thinking about the police station, about how I'd thought fortifying it would keep me safe, about how quickly it fell apart, about how the last stop had fallen the same way. Maybe there was no safe place. Maybe safe was just an illusion we told ourselves so we could keep going one more day. The truck ran out of gas around noon. We coasted to a stop and just sat there for a while. Now what? Someone asked. Emily climbed out and looked around. We were in a valley, mountains on both sides, a creek running nearby. We walk, she said. Find somewhere we can defend. Start over. Start over? Derek laughed, but it was hollow. We just lost everything, everyone. Then we find new everything, new everyone, or we give up and die. Those are the options. She started walking up the road, and after a moment we followed. What else were we going to do? We walked for 3 days. Found a ranger station that was abandoned but intact. Set up there for a few days, rested, tried to figure out what came next. Turned out what came next was more survivors. A family came through, parents and 2 kids, running from infected that had overrun their town. Then a couple in their 60s who'd been living in a camper. Then 3 guys who'd escaped from a city to the south. Within 2 weeks, we had maybe 15 people. Not as many as the last stop, but enough. Enough to keep going. Emily took charge like it was natural. Organized scavenging runs, set up watches, rationed supplies, built something out of nothing. I found myself thinking less about the police station, less about what I'd lost and more about what we might build. Derek and I became friends. Real friends. The kind forged by shared trauma and survival. We'd sit up at night on watch and talk about before, about who we'd been, about who we might become. You think we'll make it? He asked me one night. I looked at the stars, same stars that had been there at the last stop, same stars that would be there long after we were all dead and gone. I think we'll try, I said. That's all any of us could do. Try. Try to survive. Try to stay human. Try to find meaning in a world that had stopped making sense. The infected were still out there. The black-eyed ones were still evolving, still spreading. Eventually, they'd find us here. Eventually, we'd have to run again, or fight again, or die. But not today. Today we had walls and supplies and each other. Today we had a chance, and that had to be enough. Weeks turned into months. The seasons changed. Winter came to the mountains and made everything harder. Food was scarce. The cold was brutal. We lost 2 people to exposure when a scavenging run got caught in a blizzard. But we adapted. Found a way to insulate the ranger station. Set up a greenhouse using plastic sheeting and south-facing windows. Learned to trap rabbits and deer. Emily turned out to be a hell of a leader. Tough, but fair. She made the hard calls when they needed making and didn't flinch from it. Derek started teaching the kids how to shoot, how to move quietly, how to survive, trying to pass on skills that might keep them alive. I don't know what my role was exactly. General labor mostly. Fixing things, building things, doing whatever needed doing. We heard the helicopter again in December. Same black military helicopter, or one like it, flying over the valley. We tried to signal it with a fire, but it didn't stop. Just kept going like we weren't even there. Made me wonder if there was still a government somewhere, still military operating, or if it was just some survivors with a helicopter doing what we were doing, trying to stay alive one more day. One morning I was on watch and saw movement on the road. Not infected. People. Living people walking toward the ranger station. I woke Emily and we went out to meet them. There were 6 of them. Young, early 20s mostly, looked like they'd been through hell. Their leader was a girl named Amy. She had this fierce look in her eyes, like she'd seen the worst the world had to offer and refused to break. "We saw your smoke," she said. "Hoping you might have room for a few more." Emily looked them over, checking for bites, for signs of infection, for weapons, for threat level. "We work for our keep," Amy added. "Don't cause trouble. Just want somewhere safe." Emily glanced at me. I shrugged. Her call. "We've got rules," Emily said. Same speech Rachel had given me. "Everyone works, everyone contributes. You fuck up, you're out." "Understood," Amy said. "Then welcome to the ranger station. It's not much, but it's ours." We integrated them slowly, gave them tasks, watched how they handled stress, made sure they weren't going to be a problem. They turned out to be solid, pulled their weight, didn't complain, fit in. Amy was smart too. She'd been studying engineering before everything fell apart, and she had ideas for improving our defenses. Water collection systems, better insulation, a wind turbine to generate electricity. We didn't have the materials for most of it, but it was nice to have someone thinking about the future instead of just surviving day to day. Spring came, and with it new problems. The infected had survived the winter too. We started seeing them again on scavenging runs. Not as many as before, but enough to be dangerous. And we saw more of the black-eyed ones. They'd spread. Emily's theory was that they were some kind of mutation, an evolutionary response to the infection. Smart enough to hunt, smart enough to adapt, but still driven by that same mindless hunger. We fortified the ranger station more, built a proper fence around the perimeter, set up early warning systems using tripwires and bells, made plans for what to do if they found us, because they would find us eventually. That was inevitable. In May, we made contact with another group about 20 miles west. They had a farm, 40 acres, growing food, raising chickens. We worked out a trade agreement. They needed tools and medicine, we needed fresh food. Helped both groups. Started to feel like maybe we were building something. Not just surviving, but actually living. Derek fell for one of Amy's group, a quiet girl named Lisa. And they got together, and it was nice, seeing people find happiness in all this darkness. Emily even smiled at the little wedding ceremony we held, makeshift as it was. I thought about finding someone myself. There was a woman, Kelly, who joined us in early spring. We talked sometimes, got along well. But every time I thought about taking that step, about letting myself care about someone that much, I remembered Rachel dying in the back of that truck. Remembered Phil getting bit. Remembered all the people I'd watched die. Easier to keep some distance, safer. But lonely. Summer was good to us. The greenhouse produced vegetables. The trade with the farm gave us eggs and meat. We even found a working generator and enough fuel to run it a few hours a day. Had electricity for the first time in months. Little victories, little moments of normal. Then August came. We were on a scavenging run, me and Derek and 2 others, hitting a town about 15 miles south. Looking for medical supplies mostly. The town seemed clear, not many infected. So we split up to cover more ground. I was in a pharmacy loading antibiotics into my pack when I heard Derek scream. I ran outside and saw them. The black-eyed ones. A whole pack of them, maybe 20, surrounding Derek and Lisa. They'd been coordinated, had flanked them, cut them off from their escape route. I started firing, dropped 3 before they even realized I was there. The others scattered, using cover, smart enough to avoid being easy targets. Derek was on the ground, bleeding from his leg. Lisa was trying to drag him toward me while firing her pistol one-handed. One of the black-eyed ones got past me. It came at me from the side. I turned too slow, knew I wasn't going to make it. Then Kelly was there, appearing from somewhere, putting a shotgun blast right through its chest. It went down and she pumped the action, fired again into another one trying to flank. Between the 3 of us, we drove them back. Killed maybe half, the rest retreated into buildings. We got Derek to the truck. His leg was torn up but not bitten. Lucky. So fucking lucky. We made it back to the ranger station and Emily patched him up. He'd live, probably walk with a limp, but he'd live. That night, Kelly found me on watch. "You saved my life," I said. "You'd have done the same." "Still, thank you." She sat down next to me and we didn't talk for a while. Just sat there in comfortable silence. "This is all temporary, isn't it?" she finally said. Not a question. "Yeah, probably." "So, what do we do?" I thought about it. About the police station and the last stop and every other place that had seemed safe until it wasn't. "We live while we can," I said. "We take care of each other. We don't give up." "That's it? That's the plan?" "That's the plan." She laughed quietly. "Pretty shitty plan. You got a better one?" "No." We sat there watching the stars and I felt something shift. Like maybe keeping distance was stupid. Maybe lonely was worse than the risk of losing someone. I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. Fall came again. Full year since everything had fallen apart. We'd lost people. We'd survived things that should have killed us. We'd built something small but real. The infected were still out there. The world was still broken. Nothing had been fixed. But we were still here. Still trying. Still human. Derek recovered enough to walk with a cane. He and Lisa talked about having a kid, about bringing new life into this fucked up world. Most people thought they were crazy. Maybe they were. Or maybe that's what hope looked like now. Emily announced she was going to try reaching out to other groups, building a network, sharing resources and information, creating something bigger than just our small community. It was ambitious, probably doomed, but we were going to try anyway. Because that's what we did. We tried. The ranger station wasn't much, wasn't the last stop, wasn't as fortified as the police station had been. But it was ours. We'd built it together, defended it together, lived in it together. Barbasca, maybe that mattered more than walls or guns or any of the other stuff we thought would keep us safe. Maybe what kept us alive was each other. I sat on watch one October night, Kelly sleeping in our shared bunk inside, Derek and Lisa playing cards by candlelight, Emily planning her network expansion. And I thought about where I'd been a year ago. Alone in a police station, slowly dying of isolation and fear. Shooting a dog that didn't deserve it. Running, always running. I wasn't running anymore. Winter came again, harder than the first one. We lost the greenhouse to heavy snow, lost 3 people to pneumonia, spent weeks trapped inside by blizzards. But we made it through. Spring brought new survivors. A whole group from a city to the east, maybe 30 people. Their settlement had been overrun by a massive horde. They'd escaped with whatever they could carry. We took them in. Barely had room, but we made it work. Amy's engineering project started paying off. We got the wind turbine working, had electricity most days now. Built better walls, improved the water system. The trade network Emily had started was growing. 5 other groups now, scattered across maybe 100 miles. We shared information about infected movements, about resources, about threats. Started to feel like maybe we were rebuilding. Not the old world, that was gone, but something new. Derek and Lisa had their baby in April. A girl. They named her Rachel. Watching Derek hold his daughter, seeing the pure love and terror in his eyes, I understood why some people thought it was crazy. Bringing a kid into this world seemed cruel. But I also saw hope there. Saw a future that extended beyond just survival. Maybe that was worth something. Kelly and I talked about it sometimes. About kids, about the future, about what we were building. We didn't have answers. Nobody did. But we had each other. We had our small community. We had purpose. The infected were still evolving. We'd seen new variations, ones that could tolerate sunlight better, ones that moved faster. The black-eyed ones were spreading, appearing in reports from all the trade network groups. Emily thought maybe the infection was burning itself out. Too many hosts dead, not enough living people left to spread to. Could be we'd reached some kind of equilibrium. Or could be we were just in the eye of the storm, waiting for the next wave to hit. Either way, we kept preparing, kept building, kept living. I think about the police station sometimes. About those 5 days I spent there, thinking I could fortify my way to safety. How naive that seems now. You can't build walls high enough to keep out the apocalypse, but you can build community. You can build connections. You can find people worth fighting for, worth dying for, and maybe, if you're lucky, worth living for. 2 years gone now. The ranger station is a real settlement. We've got almost 60 people. Proper defenses, sustainable food sources. We're not just surviving anymore. We're living. Derek's daughter is walking now, babbling in that way toddlers do. Kelly and I are talking seriously about having our own. Emily's trade network has grown to include 15 groups. Someone found a working radio transmitter. We've been broadcasting, letting anyone out there know we're here, that they're not alone. Sometimes we get responses. Sometimes it's just static. But we keep broadcasting, keep trying. The world ended, but we didn't. And that's something. The infected are still out there. The black-eyed ones are still a threat. We've had close calls, had to evacuate once when a large horde moved through the valley. But we survived. We always survive. That's what we do. I'm on watch tonight, same as I was 2 years ago at the police station. But everything's different now. Then I was alone, terrified, certain I was going to die. Now I'm surrounded by people I trust, people I love, people I'd die for. And I'm not afraid. Well, that's a lie. I'm still afraid. Fear doesn't go away just because you find community. The world is still dangerous, still broken, still full of things that want to kill you. But fear isn't in charge anymore. Hope is. Strange thing to say in the apocalypse, but it's true. We've built something here. Something that matters. And we're going to keep building it, keep defending it, keep making it better. For Rachel, Derek's daughter. For the kids we might have. For everyone who comes after. The sun's coming up now. My watch is ending. Kelly will be waking soon, starting her day in the greenhouse. Derek will be doing morning rounds, checking the fence. Emily will be on the radio, talking to other groups. Normal stuff, human stuff. I holster my pistol and head inside. Another day survived. Another day lived. And tomorrow we'll do it again. Because that's what we do. We keep going. We keep trying. Even when the world says there's nothing left to hope for. Thanks for watching, guys. I will be back with another story